back to my channel. My name is Michaela. I'm the content creator behind KandidKayla.com. Here at this platform, you will find an array of different information, but solely we stick to growing ourselves, in ourselves, and for ourselves as we talk about the 8 different categories of wellness. I thought that I would be remiss if I didn't talk about relational wellness and relational health by talking today a little bit about my singleness journey and what it is that I feel like I could add to the conversation. So I've been on my singleness journey really my whole life. I haven't technically had a boyfriend per se in my life, but I've gone through quite a bit of situationships. I can say with certainty that I've been really invested in it for maybe the last 6 years, but I've been super intentional maybe about half that time. And so along this journey, I've noticed that there's a lot of conversation as it relates to dating, especially Christian dating, courting, and things of that nature as it relates to marriage. But there are no people telling us how to be single, how to enjoy our singlehood, and how to really live a nice life, live a comfortable life while we are single. So a few things I would like to preface before we get started. I am showing you what it looks like essentially to be satisfied in your singleness. There's a lot of conversation about being single unintentionally and having to do the work on yourself because either a relationship went poorly or you're preparing yourself for a future relationship. There's very little talk about what it looks like to truly be happy in yourself, to have a desire to get married one day, but for that not to be your immediate goal as it relates to your singleness in this time. Everybody's purpose is not to be married. So I'm going to caveat that too, so that you understand like the satisfied single journey does not apply to the people that aren't planning to get married. A satisfied single journey doesn't apply to only people who want to get married. A satisfied single journey is literally being content in who you are and who God has called you to be and the mission that He's giving you and executing it as such with Him being the center and you being second. And my first point is a satisfied single life is all about loving God. I quote this verse a lot, but I would like to bring it up yet again that the Lord says that the number one priority is if you love the Lord your God with all your heart, mind, soul, and strength. So keeping Him first, understanding that He should be sitting on the throne of your heart. He should not take a back seat to your crush, to your spouse, to anybody or anything, not lust, not pornography or anything like that. He should be sitting on the throne of your heart in such a way that He controls your thought process, the way that you speak, and the way that you maneuver life. So it says in 1 Corinthians 7 that the Lord would prefer actually for us to be single because during that single time when you are not married, your sole devotion is to God. Your sole number one purpose in life is to glorify God, to love Him, and to delight in Him. That is one of my favorite verses, is Psalms 37:4, and it says, "Take delight in the Lord, and He will give you the desires of your heart." I really started my journey on trying to learn God and love God independent of blessings. So really trying to get to know Him and love Him for who He is and all that He is, aside from, Lord, prepare me for a spouse. It was simply all about, Lord, I love you and I want to get to know you in such a way that I'm devoted to you and I want to do my best for you. You keep God first, He will prepare you for whatever it is that you need to do. You just need to have Him be your focus, irrespective of whatever goal it is that you're trying to accomplish. So when you're satisfied and you're single, you're really devoted to God, number one, but then number two, you're devoted to yourself. You're devoted to loving yourself. You're devoted to caring for yourself. You're devoted to really solidifying your wellness tools and your wellness plan for yourself. The second thing that he says is to love your neighbor as yourself. So you must love yourself first in order for you to love your neighbor as yourself. In that way, taking the time to truly see how it is that you receive love in such a way that you care for yourself so that you can eventually care for somebody else, whether that be a spouse or simply a friend, a family member, or whoever you have a relationship with. Like I said, the intent is not necessarily for you to think marriage is the end-all be-all, but understand that once you do, or if you do want to be in a marriage, that's when the work kind of really starts. You're trying to merge two people together as one. So during your singleness time, if you learn how to love yourself adequately, if you learn how to care for yourself adequately and things like that, you're able to share that with somebody in such a way that that person, yes, they will get to learn you, but it'll be a lot easier because you'll already know what it is that you like, what it is that you don't like, and who you are. I think the most important part of singleness journey of any kind, it doesn't matter if you think you're satisfied or not, is learning yourself. Really learning who you are and knowing who you are, having standards, having a relationship with yourself in such a way that you know who you are and whose you are, so that you can eventually fall into place when it comes to your purpose. The last premise behind my satisfied single journey is that I am dedicated to doing the work for my legacy. So I understand that there is a legacy that I'm leaving. We all leave a legacy, whether we have children or we don't. When we pass away, there are people that are attached to us who will remember something about us. And it is important for me in particular that I leave something behind for the people that I care about. I currently do not have children, but I have two beautiful godchildren that I adore, and a nephew and a god sister that I would love to leave something behind for, both monetarily and spiritually. There are things that I have learned in my life that I don't want my godchildren or my god sister to go through, or my nephew. There are situations that I don't want these kids to ever have to endure because I went through them, and I would hope that they would have learned from me and from my example. It's important for me to do the work for the day that I one day may have kids, and if I don't, for these extended children that are in my life, to do the work and to show them, for no other reason, to be an example that it is possible, that God can be your number one priority, God can be your number one goal, and you not be weird, you not be somebody that they think that you're not. You can truly be yourself and not have to give up that part of yourself. I recently was watching a podcast sit down kind of video with Lipstick and Curls and her husband now, and they were talking about how they wish they would have known when they were younger the things that they've learned from the Relationship Goals book by Pastor Michael Todd. And in that conversation, they were talking about how they wish that somebody would have given them that information so they could have made an informed decision about their lives. They had a preconceived notion of what it looked like for somebody to save themselves for marriage and to be intentionally single and things like that. They honestly thought that you had to go through these ebbs and flows of heartbreak and things like that, and that's what would define your 20s. When in all actuality, God never calls us to go through pain in that way. Yes, there's pain in this world, and yes, we should take heart in them, but God is never the author of confusion or hurt or anything of that sort. So it's important that we understand that and we recognize that for our single lives, that God doesn't call us to that. God doesn't call us to the ebbs and flows. He calls us to love Him, love ourselves, love our neighbor, and then when the time comes, if you are called to be married, to marry your spouse and to love your spouse in such a way because you've already done the work. I want to ensure that I am an example, that the legacy that I leave shows that I loved God, I loved myself, I loved my neighbor, and I kept God at the center of even my singleness time, and that I waited, and that I'm honoring Him with both my body, my speech, and my life in such a way that people can tell a difference. And I know, sex is a big topic in the Christian world, sex and how we view sex and different things of that nature. And that is an important subject to me, but that does not define my satisfied single season. It is something that, yes, it's important that we talk about and we have education around, but my life is not ran by sex. My boundaries are not ran by sex. The way that I live is not ran by sex. It's important that you guys understand that. I am satisfied in my singleness because of that. And I think once we take that out and we realize that God has called us to leave such a legacy, that we could show people who He's called us to be in such a way that we are whole, intentionally whole in who we are, I think that's when people will stop side-eyeing us so much about our journeys, especially single Christians. I mean, the number one con that I hear from people as it relates to being a Christian is that you can't have sex and that all the Christians are having sex. So take that out of there and people would honestly have more right and more reason to believe. So I hope this video was extremely helpful to you guys. I hope that it was encouraging, and I hope that it kind of gives you a different perspective on what it looks like to be single. For the entire month of July, every Thursday, I will be sharing a part of my story. I will be sharing something that I feel like is missing from the conversation as it relates to how to be single, how to be satisfied in your singleness, and how to really find that groove in such a way that you can still be who you are and not have to sacrifice any part of life in order to give God glory. So if you guys found this video helpful, please like, comment, share, and subscribe. It would help me a whole lot. As you guys can see, our channel is very small, our platform is very small, but I would love for this information to get out to the masses, because I would love, especially for young men and women, to understand it's all right to not have the experience that people feel as though you should have, because God hasn't called you to that in that time. So again, thank you guys so much, and until next time, bye.